Hey guys, Patriot with you again. We're going to step away from the 7-day wilderness backpack series. I've only got a couple things left to do in that series, but we're going to fast forward and go ahead and review some of the gear. One of the things that I've been excited to review or to talk about is the Sawyer Squeeze filtration system. This is my system that is packed in my 7-day wilderness pack. It weighs 0.42 pounds as shown. That's everything, including the mesh bag and the accessories in here. Let's go ahead and go through this in a moment. You can see here they have a total field weight of 3 ounces on here, which is I think one bag plus the filter and the syringe. But let me go ahead and show you that here in just a second. It comes with 3 different size pouches. I've really been pounding one of the pouches big time just to see how much it will take, and so far I haven't broken the thing yet. I'm trying to kind of keep the other ones fresh. I did fill them with water one time just to make sure that there was no leaks. So let's go ahead and open this up. I like the mesh bag, that way any wet equipment can dry. And we'll set that to the side. You're going to see some little connections and hoses that I have here. Here's the filter itself, and these are a couple of the squeeze bags. I'm just going to set those to the side here for a moment and show you the main body of the filter. This is a syringe that comes with the system, and the purpose, great, I just shot water everywhere. The purpose of this, guys, is to backwash the filter. So after this would normally be the flow direction, and you would be pressurizing this side and it would be emitting clean water out this side. You would actually put clean water in this side and push it through the filter this way. Now I have found that because the frequency needed to clean this is so minuscule that I wouldn't need to carry this with me. If I did need to backwash this in an emergency situation, I've got another option, and I'm going to show that to you guys. Let's go ahead and move some of these things out of the way because not everything here came with the filter kit. Obviously this did, and this has just got a little cap over it. This end is normally left open. You can see by the threads on here that that would attach to a water bottle, and it's also going to attach to our squeeze pouches right here. The hosing and this platypus carbon element is something that I added just to add a little bit more flexibility, and I'll tell you why I did that. This little piece didn't come with the filter. Basically it would screw on the output side and this would screw on the input side, and I'll show you why those are helpful. They were just a little accessory kit for $5 that I purchased separately. And this piece here is a pre-filter that I've adapted from the Aquamira Frontiersman, or the Frontier Pro I think it is. Basically this is just its little pre-filter, but because this uses a standard threading on it, this would plug in here, and now I have a pre-filter. It does slow down the flow rate a little bit, but it's not that much. Now it's got a couple of extra felt pieces that you can put in there, but in an emergency you could also use a bandana or some microfiber towel, which is what I carry. That would work stuffed in here as well. So unlike a pump style filter that uses a conventional glass media type filter that the water is pushed or pumped through, this is a little bit different. This one uses what's called a hollow tube technology, and those hollow tubes are a bunch of little straws in loops. There might be 100 of them in here, and each one of those straw loops have a micro porous texture, and the largest or absolute size is 0.1 microns. So there might be holes smaller than 0.1 microns, but the largest sizes can be 0.1 microns, and that's going to stop all your little critters like Giardia, Cryptosporidium, bacteria. It's not going to stop viruses, but most other field portable solutions do not stop viruses, or I should say it doesn't filter them out. So when it comes to viruses, we can treat those with chemicals, chlorine, We can boil the water. We can oxidate them. There's different things that we can do. You can even use UV light in the case of a SteriPen. Unfortunately, out here and some of the water sources that I'm tapping into, a SteriPen isn't really an option. And in fact, I actually got sick off of a SteriPen one time. So this is my field system. This is what's going to be in my 7-day wilderness pack, and let's just go ahead and get started. First thing, I just want to show you how quickly this works. These are kind of like a platypus bag. They're maybe a little bit more crinkly, not as soft as a platypus, but so far I've been beating a couple of these bags up pretty good, and I haven't punctured them. I haven't, made them leak or anything. So I'm just going to start by removing the cap. This would be our contaminated water source right here. Let me zoom out a little bit. And that would screw on the female end, or the back side of the filter. You can see the flow direction is clearly marked. If I wanted to, I can put this cap back on. Now I could drink directly from this, or I could fill a container with this if I wanted to. All I have to do is squeeze. It's open. And that's 16 ounces of water right there. So it runs through that stuff pretty quickly. Let me show you another option. Alright, so there I just primarily wanted to show you the speed. That's one of this system's big advantages, is how fast it works. Let's go ahead and do this again. This time I'm going to connect up a different piece. Actually, I'll show you that we can put it right into a water bottle with a standard size neck on it if we wanted to. Alright, another 16 ounces down. Let me show you another way that we can do things. Okay, if I wanted to do things a little bit more indirectly, stuff rolling around here, I could take this off, put this attachment on. Now I've got a hose coming out that I can run directly into this water bottle. I can hook up to the bottom of this, and with our hose inside the water bottle, again, I can just squeeze this thing out. Alright, let me show you another option. Okay, same thing as before. I'm just going to attach the filter here to the contaminated water source, and let's just use this time. And this time I'm not going to squeeze it, I'm just going to let it gravity feed. So I'm just hanging the filter like so, and I'm just going to hold this up here. This will be the full 16 ounces. So you can see, as a gravity filter, it works really quickly. It does. It'll transfer a 3-liter platypus hydration pouch in about 3.5 minutes. So it's pretty quick. Alright. You can see that empties the thing out there pretty quickly. Boy guys, I just realized how unenergetic I am right now. I had a pretty hard mountain bike ride this morning, and it's taken me a while to kick into gear. Plus I've already done this video 2 times and it was too long, so I'm trying to condense things down here and do some pre-editing before I get to the desktop. So in any case, this is my 3-liter hydration pouch, platypus pouch, out of my 7-day wilderness backpack. And this, along with 2 of these 1.5-liter smart water bottles, are my 6 liters of water that I would typically carry. One of the things that I can do is refill this hydration bladder without even removing it from the pack. And the way that I do that is simply take off the mouthpiece on this end. Of course, this would be hanging down on the shoulder strap, so it's very accessible. And then I would take the other end of this with the male adapter, put that on here, and then screw this onto the... Actually, I should have attached that last, but okay, so now I'm hooked in to directly fill this, and I can just push down on this, and hopefully you can see that filling. But it doesn't take long. I'll just squeeze the whole thing out. And what's really nice about the squeeze system is that you can squeeze it by hand, you can sit on the thing if you have to, you can stand on it. As long as you don't puncture this bladder, it's going to be pretty tough. Now, in the field, if you wanted to stand or sit on it, you'd probably want to wrap this in your rain jacket or some other piece of clothing to keep abrasion from tearing through this or something from poking through it. But you could certainly set this on top of a stump wrapped in your Gore-Tex jacket and just sit on the thing, and it would pump your platypus full of water. Now this again is only 16 ounces, so it's going to take about 6 of these to fill this up, but I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes right now. Okay, I've gone ahead and refilled the bladder, and we can do the same thing as we did before, only this time I'm just going to hang the bottle up above, and I'm not going to squeeze it or anything. I'm just going to let it empty itself. And it goes pretty quickly. It's almost not even worth setting up and walking away from because it happens so quickly. And I have transferred 3 liters to 3 liters, or another platypus container to this one, and I'll actually show you that setup really quick. It's not the one that I'm carrying in the backpack, but as this runs down, see how thin it gets? It just compresses by vacuum because of the water going into here. So you end up with a nice empty squeeze bag there, and fills up the platypus. Even though this seems to be reliable so far, the platypus has been around for a long time. So if you wanted to make this your fill container that has the Ziploc top on it, you could just dump that, scoop that into a lake, fill this thing with water in one shot, and then start your gravity feed from this thing into this thing. And the way that you would do that is you would just add the male adapter on this side, take the mouthpiece off, and run that into here, and now you have a closed system. And what I mean by a closed system, it's important with a closed system, you don't have to worry about contamination. So you're not going to have dirty water somehow drip down a hose and then enter into this one, because this is a closed system. When you're working a gravity feed setup, the way to do that would be to position your source water higher like this, let this thing come down and loop before it goes into your other clean water, and that way water is going to drip off the bottom of the loop down here before it goes into your open top water bottle. So just regular precautions there. Now everything that I've been showing you this far has been soft bag or hydration pouch to hydration pouch. If you wanted to, you could simply put that on top of the water bottle and drink directly from it. So that's an option as well. You're going to have to squeeze out the bottle. You can see it's got the water coming out the other side here, but since no air can go back in, you'll have to occasionally loosen this a little bit and let the bottle take air back in. So not quite as friendly as a soft hydration pouch with a bottle attached, but it does work, and it is an option. It would do in a pinch if you had nothing else. Okay, let's go ahead and demonstrate some of the other adaptability here. You can also use this as a straw system. The way that you would do that is put the male adapter on the intake side like this, and now this can be put into a shallow water source if you had to do that. Perhaps it was hard to access the water, maybe it was back in the crevice of a rock or something, you could obviously lengthen this tube or stick a longer piece of silicone tubing on there in order to give yourself a little bit more reach, but this would work in a shallow water situation if you weren't able to scoop water to put it in a container or something. So this works pretty good. There's a couple ways of doing that. You could actually suck directly on this if you wanted to, or you could add this piece on here and then put a piece of silicone tubing on this side if you wanted to extend your reach here. And so you would simply draw water up through on this side, and you can see how quickly it comes up through there just sucking on it. Almost forgot about another bladder option here. Let's say I didn't have time to actually filter my water before putting it into my platypus hydration pouch. I could actually fill the hydration pouch with contaminated water, and I would run a short piece of silicone tubing from the bottom of the pouch to the intake side of the filter, and put this side on here, take this tube and attach it to here, and now I've got basically what amounts to an inline system. So if I wanted to, I could quickly fill this, stuff the whole thing into my pack, and be drinking or utilizing this as a inline filter. I probably wouldn't normally do that, but if you had to or you wanted to, you could. Additionally, using a zipper type like this to scoop a quick dunk of water, that would work for this really well. Scoop it up, zip the top up, throw it back in the backpack, and use this as an inline filter. So one more option. So I've been using this water system now for about 8 weeks or so, and I've used it with just tap water, I've used it with some creek water, I've used it with lake water, and I've used it with some of the yuckiest stuff that I would try to drink out of typically, and that would be a water hole or a cow tank. One of the cow tanks that I drew water from was it had freshly filled up because of water runoff, and it had washed a lot of sediment, and the sediment up there in that area is it's a very black sediment, so it kind of turned the water black. It also had algae in it and some other stuff, and it kind of stunk around the tank as well. In any case, I did go ahead and draw water with this filter, and one of the things that I noticed is how nasty the water looked on the intake side, but how clean it looked on the output side. And it looked like tap water on the output side, which is really impressive. So you know it's doing its job, and it's taking out a lot of sediment and grime and critters. Surprisingly, it didn't slow down after that 3-liter bottle of water that I put through this. It just seemed like it kept going the same speed. So I'm pretty impressed with how clog-free it seems to be this far. But one of the things that I noticed when I tasted that water is, the best way that I can put it is that it tasted like the smell of the water. Now, it was clean water, and I didn't get sick, and I drank probably half a quart from it, but I wasn't enjoying it, and it wasn't a survival situation, so I dumped it out. But in any case, one of the things I did when I got home was I got one of these little platypus Gravity Works carbon elements, and this just attaches in line. It's disposable. They're only about $6, I think. Basically, you can put the male attachment on the output side. Well, you don't even have to, really. It has an attachment right here, and you can squeeze this right over. So if you didn't have this, it would still work. But basically, I can run contaminated water in this side, squeeze it through the filter, it passes through the carbon element here, and that's going to remove all the nasty tastes and smells of the water, and remove heavy metals. It'll remove some chemicals and pesticides if there are any in there, and this is pretty lightweight and disposable. It's only about 1 ounce. Alright, so between the 2 squeeze bags that I would carry with me in my kit, plus the platypus and the 2 1.5-liter water bottles or 2-liter bottles, depending on what I'd be carrying there, I have 5 containers of water, not including the OpSac odor-proof bear bags. Those would hold a lot more water, but these would be my specifically geared towards water. What happens? Let's say I got 2 of these damaged or punctured and they weren't repairable, and both of those bottles went out of commission, and I only had a platypus left, which leaves me 3 liters of water at a given fill up, along with whatever I can carry in my body and guzzle down. Since these are dirty containers, a lot of people would ask, well, what are you going to do? Now you don't have these as an option to carry water, right? Well, sort of. All you would have to do is clean these or decontaminate these. I've got some chlorine dioxide right here, and you could treat this. I think I've got 32 liters worth of treatment in here. You could fill this up and treat that water in here. Now you are cleaning the inside of the bag, and now you can store fresh water in here. So if you had to only work on one bag and use the other as a storage container, you could do that. You'd have to have a pretty rough trip to lose that many water containers in a 7-day period. I suspect it would actually go much longer if you kind of took care of your gear, which I try to do. But there's an option for you. So even though these do operate as the squeeze bags that's going to have the contaminated water, and I know I'm repeating myself here, you can clean this and it can become a freshwater storage bag. So you're not completely out of options there. As far as reliability goes, guys, I haven't broken one of these yet. I actually ordered 2 more of the 32-ounce squeeze bottles, and I've kind of been standing on those things a little bit. They specifically tell you that you can't you don't want to wring this out. Obviously, I can't imagine anyone doing that. But if you put direct pressure on it like this, or squeeze like this, it should be fine. So reliability of the bags is pretty good so far. If you don't like these bags, take them out of the system altogether, get rid of them, and maybe you could run a 1-liter platypus bag, or go to something like this with a big top on it that you can scoop with. We know that these are reliable. Of course, if you do puncture this, then you don't have the redundancy that you have in these multiple bags here. So that's why I'm sticking with 2 of the squeeze bags. And as I showed you before, I can put dirty water in here and drink directly out of this with the filter attached up top. So there's a lot of flexibility with this system. I can use it as an inline system. I can use it as a gravity system. Again, it only takes about 3 minutes to transfer this into the other platypus. So reliability seems to be covered. It doesn't have any moving parts in the filter. You put pressure on this side and it comes out this side. There's nothing to break in here. Just like any other water filter or element, you don't want this to freeze. In fact, when you're done using this, it's a good idea to shake the water out of here. Not only is it going to be a little bit lighter to carry, but if you are in a cold environment, there's not as much water in there to freeze. Any filter system, whether it's a cartridge type or a glass matrix or this hollow tube type, you can't damage it if it does freeze. If you know for a fact that it's frozen, then it's best just to discard it. Call the manufacturer, maybe they'll help you there. But I assume that it would be the owner's responsibility if he let this freeze. But again, that's not unique to this style. That's going to be any water filter. Once it freezes, it can damage it. The other nice thing, it's field maintainable. Oh, that's what I forgot to show you. Let's cover that right now. Okay, on the topic of field maintainability, if this did get clogged, what you can do is you can backwash it. Now, you can't really backwash a glass type filter, a cartridge type filter, because it's very hard on the membrane. It ends up crushing the membrane or expanding the membrane, and when you do that, you lose the pore size. Now, I guess if you had to do it in an emergency, you could, because I know with the pool cartridge type filters, you can backwash those as a last ditch, but it will harm the filter to a certain extent. With a pool filter, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to increase the filter size. If you increase the filter size on a drinking filter and it lets in contaminants, that's a pretty bad thing. But perhaps it's better to try it one time to backwash a pure hiker than it is to not get any water through it at all if you don't have any other means of filtering or purifying your water. So basically what I would do in the case of this, I would just take the mouthpiece off of this end. I would hook this to this, and so that's the way that you would want to do that. I can't get a lot of force on here because I'm slightly off kilter. It's in the middle of the table and I can't get much weight over it. So in any case, it will give you a lot of pressure pushing it through that way versus just that little syringe. Typically what I've been doing is when I get home, I go ahead and wash the thing out with the tap water. I connect up a tap water attachment here, and then I wash it out that way because I've got a lot more volume, water volume and pressure. The one thing to note about this style of system, whether it's with the syringe or with this, I could use this to backwash it as well, is that you have to have clean water in order to backwash it. So if you deplete all of your water reserves and your filter is clogged, you're going to have to come up with clean water in order to backwash this first in order to get more fresh water. Obviously there's different ways of doing that. You saw one of the ways that I have here with the chlorine dioxide. You could also boil water, of course. That's always a primary consideration. And you could boil water and run it back through here as well. So no matter what system you use, guys, whether it's a pure gravity only system or it's a squeeze system like this, or it's a pump, every one of them is going to have a fuss factor to a certain extent. With a pump, it's a mechanical device that needs maintenance. The way that you take care of the filter when it's not in use, the way that the O-rings are lubricated so that bypass water doesn't get past those and contaminate something. They're all going to have a little bit of something that you have to deal with. If it's a ceramic pump filter, a new list of problems there. Ceramic tends to clog quicker than a glass cartridge and way quicker than this one. The manufacturer says that this has a 20-to-1 ratio or clog factor on it as a typical ceramic filter. So a ceramic filter that you would have to stop to clean 20 times, you would only have to clean this one time in that same amount of water. So it's pretty impressive. That seems to be kind of the results that I'm getting so far. The ceramic filter that I used for a long time was the MSR MiniWorks, and yeah, it works great, but it does seem to kind of clog up fairly quickly, and then you have to clean that ceramic element on it. Fortunately, I've never gone through a ceramic element. I guess I just wasn't filtering that much, or maybe my water sources weren't too bad, but it slows down way before this thing does. I haven't noticed this slow down yet, so that's saying a lot. So each type is going to have its fuss factor, some less than others. But I think if this loses 1 point in the fuss factor category as compared to, say, a Katadyn Vario or a Katadyn Hiker, it probably makes up for that in flexibility and portability and in less weight. So as you've seen, this is a very flexible system, and that's why it's going to be in my 7-day backpack. I think next time I'll try to show you some of the other filters that I've been using over the years. Well, not just filters, but water treatment systems. And then I'll show some field use that I already have that video taken, but I don't think it's going to fit onto this video. So we'll just make that a separate or a part 2. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Patriot out.